Welcome to the Forward Miami Show. I'm your host, Damian Pardo, and Forward Miami is a local nonprofit that specializes in diversity, inclusion, and produces the Forward Gala and the Gay Ocho Festival. I have the enormous pleasure today of having with me Commissioner Rene Garcia, District 13, Miami-Dade County Commissioner. And we're just, number one, super pleased to have you here. And we want to know a little bit more about you, like how you got into office, how you grew up here, what your background is.
I don't know about enormous pleasure. What are you trying to say?
It's enormous. We're super thrilled. We're happy.
That's awesome. Thank you.
We're happy. We know your time is very limited, and we're very grateful that you're dedicating this time.
No, Damien, everyone's time is limited. No one's time is better than anyone else's. And I just want to apologize for not being able to make it out here earlier. I know we've been trying to do it for a couple of shows, but life gets in the way. So, and last time my mother fell, and this is why I wasn't able to be here. So, thank you for.
And she's doing better.
Yeah, she's doing much better. Thank God. Thank God for modern medicine. She fractured her F11 vertebrae. It was a compressed fracture, and thank God they were able to fuse it, and now she's back to normal. Thank God for that. Otherwise, it would have been a huge ordeal. So this is why it's important that anyone that has older parents, if they have us fall, make sure they go to the doctor immediately to get all the x-rays and all the tests done, because she took a week before she went into the doctor, because typical Cuban mother, no, I'm fine. I was after her to go to the doctor, and finally we did it, but all is well now.
Thank God.
So
that's great. So how did you grow up here? How was your...
Well, I'm a Hialeah product, born and raised in Hialeah. Went to public school from Palm Springs Elementary, Hialeah Middle School, and back then it was Hialeah Junior High. Now it's all middle school, right? Mm-hmm. And then Hialeah High. I'm a true thoroughbred all the way through. And then I went to Miami-Dade College, FIU, and I got my master's at the University of Miami, where I have a master's in business administration, specializing in healthcare.
Oh, that's great.
So I've been love this community. I started working as an intern. I interned in Ileana Ross Layton's office.
Wow.
And that's where I guess I got the
bug.
Yeah. But when I was in college, I was a president of a local fraternity. And then I went into FIU. I was in a fraternity there. We always did service projects and so forth. And I know we get a bad rap as elected officials or public servants, but I really do believe in giving back to our community. And I really do believe that it's all of our responsibility to give back and make our community a better place. And I think I've proven it through my time in the legislature and now here in the county commission.
No, thank you for your service. It is very, very meaningful, to hear that from elected officials. When you started, you just mentioned you got the bug when you were working in Ileana Ross Layton's office, but is that what kind of brought you to public office, or were there other factors?
No, living in Hialeah, I was always involved. I was always involved in junior high, and I was involved in high school for whatever reason, because the funny thing is that my family is so apolitical. But we are a family that we are, I'm the youngest of like 17 cousins, and my father and my mother, when my grandmother passed away, turned into the matriarch or patriarch mm-hmm. of the family on my father's side. So we're always giving back. And my mom was in the factoria. She worked in the factories back then when there was factories here in Hialeah.
My grandmother did too.
And my father was in the construction business. And they were modest individuals, but they never turned anyone away, and they always helped everyone in our family. And maybe that's where I understood that it's important for always us to give back. And that's what I've always done.
When you say apolitical, what do you mean by that?
No, because the first time I ran for office, my mom said she was going to disown me, because she didn't want me to be in politics.
Why? Because they're all crooks.
Yeah, exactly. She was like, she just didn't want me. She said, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, my father had to convince her to let me run for office the first time when I ran for the city council in Hialeah. The first time I ran, I was in 1995, 2 years out of high school.
Wow. You were young.
Yeah, I was really young. 2 years out of high school.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's the time to do it, really, honestly. I think that's...
It was a lot of work, though. I'll tell you, because a lot of people would tell me, Rene, you're too young to run for office. You have to sit back and wait. And the more that people tell me no, the more I go for it. And, but that year when I ran in 95, I didn't get elected. And then I got elected. Then I ran in 97. when people were telling me, no, don't do it again. You're too young. Wait for till you finish school. I was at FIU, and then I got elected in 1997, and then the rest is history. And then from there, I went to the state house. I was in the city council for a couple of years, and then I went to the state house where I had a great time. I really do enjoy Tallahassee government. I enjoy the state legislature, and then I was in the state senate for 8 years. Where I finished my term up there due to term limits, and then I came back down to the county commission now.
And what do you think has, or maybe not, but what do you think has changed in the political environment ever since you've been in that sector?
Wow, the political discourse is really different. And just think about it. When I got elected, it was in 2000, and that's the President Bush and Gore election. So the first vote I ever took was to choose the electorates for in that election, which ultimately was resolved with the courts and so forth. But back then it was really contentious for that moment. But Republicans and Democrats were able to talk to each other. There was a lot of showboating and theater that would go on in the floor, but for the most part, people would communicate with each other. We had big disagreements, huge disagreements actually, but people were able to hang out with one another and go out, have a drink, have dinner with one another, and have conversations. And I think that throughout my time in the legislature, I've seen it get more polarized. And I think that's what's happening in our political discourse right now in our country, where our country is now, where, you have the extreme right and the extreme left, and God forbid that you reach out to the other side and to try to have a conversation about trying to move this country forward.
How do you deal with that? I mean, we at Forward Miami, we try to work on those kind of issues. And what do you think are ways that as a community, because a lot of times I think this is pushed down from like New York, LA, national, then state, and then it finally hits the local community. But the last election here was the last time I remember knowing who was a Democrat and who was a Republican in the county level. That was very different.
No, right, because look, at the local elections right now, they're nonpartisan elections, but the press makes it all partisan. We all make it partisan, and mainly the press, because every time they write a story, the Republican Rene Garcia, or the chairman of the party Rene Garcia, or the Democrat Daniela Cava, the mayor, everything has become hyper partisan, and I don't think the press does a good job at trying to keep the politics out of it. So I blame part of it on the press, trying to identify people with a certain segment and a certain block, and that continuously keeps on tearing this apart. And you don't have to hide behind it. I don't hide behind the fact that I'm a Republican, but these are nonpartisan races. And when we look at our community, we have to come together and work for the betterment of our community. And this is what I've always tried to do in my time in the legislature, and now here in the county commission.
And do you find that now it's really that difficult at the county commission level? Do you feel people are being pulled by their parties apart?
Absolutely, they do, but I do my part in trying to reach and trying to find solutions that can work. Look, when you're trying to negotiate any type of legislation, you're not going to get everything that you want. And I think where we are right now is it's all or nothing mentality. And it can't be an all or nothing mentality. You have to take small bites at the apple, take one now, take the other one next year, and keep on going. But we're now in a point where it's scorched earth. If I don't get what I want, then I'm coming after you. Right. How does that make good politics? How does that actually, it may make good politics, but it doesn't make good government.
Right.
And
that's a good point.
And that's what we need to start looking and identifying, maybe find common ground where we have a common ground and work off of that. But right now we're looking at all the differences that we have, and we start where we're different.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I hate this idea. And I think we all understand this whole cancel culture mentality that we live in right now, that, if I disagree with you on one thing, then I'm done with you. Then I'm coming after you tooth and nail. There's nothing you can say or do.
I think part of it is the nature of the beast, because media is kind of like social media, which is even worse, which is how many likes you get or how many people open your article or how many people. So the way to attract that is by using whatever's inflammatory. I mean, that seems to be the easiest way. And then social media to me just makes it even more exponentially bad because it pulls people.
Damien, the headlines are the ones that sell.
Yeah.
You write a headline and that's the narrative that people go with. And it's very unfortunate.
Are there antidotes to that? I mean, for the regular person watching this show or just out there, what kinds of things can they do maybe to make things a little bit better?
I think we have to just read into it. I think it's people have to make their own conclusions. They can't base their ideas based on someone else's writings. We have to not just, if you're a Democrat, just don't watch CNN. If you're a Republican, just don't constantly, watch what the other side is saying,
right, and
then try to balance that out.
Right.
That's the only way that we are going to try to bring this country back together. This is not an idea of blue states versus red states. It's an idea of the collective. And I think we all understand and agree that what has made this country great is the individual spirit, the individuality of people. Obviously we have to protect the collective, but the individual spirit is what we need to remember. And I think
like entrepreneurialism, meritocracy, those concepts.
Listen, but it's who we are.
Mm-hmm.
We have to make sure that we as individuals come up with our own conclusions and be well read and see what the other side is saying and come up with our own conclusions and not base our conclusion based on someone else's ideas or philosophies. And I think that's what's been happening lately in our country.
And specifically as a Republican, when you see these kind of issues play out, whether it's the Supreme Court or the Florida House, the recent Roe v. Wade decision, how do you try to temper that, or how do you try to address that with the constituents that you serve?
Look, when it comes to the Roe v. Wade decision that came down, I'm one of those that thinks that should be a decision that should be held at the states. And you see right now that it's working. We have a state court here in Florida that put an injunction on the ruling on the state legislature, what they passed and the governor signed. I think it's a 15-week ban. So the court, now this process is working through its way in the states. That's something that really should belong in the states, and let the people of those states decide. They can vote for who they want. This is a representative democracy. They should be able to vote for the people that are going to take their wishes to the state legislatures.
So that I understand well, the Republican position was always that this should not be a constitutional ruling. There should be a ruling that is held by states. There should be that it wasn't necessarily we don't agree with a woman's right to choose or a woman's right to determine her own.
Right. And this is where the narrative has gotten lost. And the narrative has been shaped with the ruling that came down from the Supreme Court. It wasn't the ruling that abortion should be outlawed. It's quite saying the abortion issue, the woman's right to choose, should be decided at the states. Let the states decide those issues. And I think, look, I come from a state legislature, and I believe in the republic and the way the republic was structured. Let states decide these issues. This is why we have a collection of 50 different states with different laws, different rules, different regulatory schemes. And I think it's important. This is the great American experiment, is that, when we had the 13 original colonies, they came together. They were separate colonies, and they came together and they formed this union. And they made sure that we had different rules for, different states. The federal government is supposed to handle, protection of our borders, national interests, foreign trade, and so forth. But the states are really our individual countries.
Yeah,
coming together. And this is why you have governors and legislatures of each state. You don't have to, I don't agree with a lot of the things that we do here in the state, but we have to believe in state rights. And I'm one that I do agree 100% with state rights. And when I have been part of these national organizations, either NALEO or the National Hispanic Caucus of State Legislators, or NCL, I've always promoted the idea of states' rights. Because unfortunately, what's happened, Damian, in the last 15, 20, 30 years, we have states have given up a lot of their rights, or the federal government has taken their rights. So I think what you're starting to see here now, maybe it's a shift coming back, having the power coming back to the states.
I think a lot of times what has shifted federally has been kind of like the basic protections, like protections from discrimination, or, where the Supreme Court has been more involved, it has been with issues like broader issues, as an example, like reproductive rights or gay marriage or these other kinds of issues that have led there. You think that, for example, could we have had discrimination protection at states handled completely differently, or would that have made a difference? Is it better to have held it at a federal standard so that it applies to all states in one, something like the Civil Rights Act, or is that also something that states should weigh in on?
When it comes to the Civil Rights Act, I think that in itself, discrimination of any kind I think we all agree that should not happen. Right. We should be completely against discrimination of any type. It doesn't matter of sexual identity, sexual preference, color, race, origin. I think those are types of issues that have a blanket state over the country. But when it comes to the state's protections itself, when you look at the states and the issues that the states have to deal with, I think it's important that we recognize that we do have a collection of 50 different states and 50 different legislatures and a representative democracy that are elected by the people to make decisions for them at their state capitals. And I think the best government that we have is a government that's closest to the people. And that's something that I believe that makes a lot more sense to keep it at the state level.
And what issues do you see here in Miami-Dade County that are kind of like at the forefront?
Here in Miami-Dade County, let me tell you something, Damian. Being in the county is very different than being in the state legislature.
How so?
It's night and day.
Yeah.
I'll tell you first, I think the sunshine rule in the state legislature, we can talk to one another, and it makes it a lot easier to have conversations and debate or let each other know one's position, and you can back and forth.
Yeah. Conversation.
And negotiate. It's really, you're able to negotiate.
What would it take to change that?
Now, the state legislature rule that I think years ago, they were concerned with a lot of fraudulent activity was happening at the local level, mainly on on zoning issues and so forth. And again, they went too far, and they just now don't give everything has to be done on the sunshine when it comes to, which sometimes I think sometimes it may be better, but it makes it a little harder for us to have conversations. And, here in Miami-Dade County, we have a $9 billion budget.
Wow, $9 billion.
Yes, and the biggest difference between being here and being in Tallahassee is that we have procurement ability, meaning that we can sign off on contracts. In the legislature, you legislate and you give the authority to the agencies. And I'm not going to tell you that when you're in the legislature, you don't, make the laws a little bit narrow to maybe favor a handful of folks so they can have that happens. But here in the county commission, the county commission picks and chooses the winners and losers directly on contractual bids. I've seen, when you go through the procurement process, I think we need to focus and reshape the procurement process where, the cone of silence that exists. I don't think there's a real cone of silence when it comes to having staff evaluate the contracts and ranking individuals.
What does that mean? Like just confidentiality, cone of silence?
Yeah, when a bid goes out, there's a code of silence that goes in, or I think when everyone submits their bids, so no one can talk to no one about it, so no one gets an upper hand. But I don't necessarily know if that really happens all the time. And then on the selection process, the time that it takes for contracts to be issued, the challenge process. Some of these contracts take forever because there's one challenge after the next. So those are the things that I'm going to be focusing on here in the next couple of years and trying to fix the procurement process, and also try to bring more transparency to the way that we do business at the county. Again, we're a $9 billion budget. We are a home rule charter, so we have not all of the rules really bind us that bind other counties. But I think that we should be more like some state legislatures and be a lot more open in the way that we do our business here in Miami-Dade County.
I always wonder about, part of the kind of Republican theme is don't pay more taxes because there's enough taxes, government's big enough, blah, blah, blah. Part of the kind of Democratic theme is, well, we need more taxes because we need more programs, more support. But I've rarely heard government look at itself and try to evaluate its own efficiency. I mean, if you look at corporations, they all have a bottom line. They have to keep costs down. They have to, I'm not sure anybody in government is incented to do that in government. Which I think taxpayers would appreciate because they would feel that their money is being taken seriously, not just wasted away, on whatever. And I think that's what makes many people not want to pay more taxes, that they feel that their money is not being managed well. Is there anything that can be done about something like that, or is that just a perception?
Look, no, Damian, I think it's important that we recognize, again, government operates with taxes. All right, that's the way we do it. There's not too many tools that government has. Government has either you raise taxes or you cut services. That's really the tools that we have right now. And one of the things that I'm trying to push for now, because even though the taxes have not gone up, the millage rate here in Miami-Dade County has not gone up. This is the taxes that you pay on your property taxes, but the assessed value has gone up. So you see that assessments are going through the roof. And that's if your assessment of your house is going up more, that means you're paying more in taxes. And that, this is where the misnomer sits. Oh, we're not raising taxes, but people are paying more. And this is one of the things that I'm trying to push.
Is it capped at 3% still, or?
Yeah, for the homesteaded properties.
For the
homesteaded properties, they are. But you're still paying more, So we're trying to figure out. I would like to see if we can bring down those millage rates this year to try to alleviate some of the tax burden that our families have. One, and two is have better spending at the county. Unfortunately, government isn't the best steward of people's money. And again, how
can that change though? That's kind of what I'm getting at.
But we need to start electing people that are going to start paying attention to that. And this is why it's so important to find out who we're voting for at the local level. Yes, people pay attention to national politics. It's great. Your congressman, I love our congressman, the president of the United States, or U.S. senators. But the ones that affect our daily lives are local. Your mayors, your city council members, and your county commissioners. Those are the ones that we got to start paying attention to, making sure that people are going to be fiscally responsible with people's money. And unfortunately, I've seen it far too often where a lot of us in this business, just think it's paper money. What's another zero? No, let's do this. A project.
Or if you don't spend it, you'll lose it. So spend it.
And that happens all the time. But no, or cost overruns on contracts. That why don't we penalize those companies or that have contracts with us? That if your contract doesn't come in on time, you lose X amount of dollars. No, but what they do, they ask for extensions and they get paid more money. It doesn't make sense. Or the amount of lobbyists that are involved with a certain contract. I just think we can do a lot better. We can do a lot better here in
Is there a position within the county that it specifically addresses that or that's responsible for that kind of monitoring, those kind of issues?
Well, you have an inspector general. We could ask for investigations or for reports to be done on certain contracts. So there is, and our inspector general is a good guy. He has a good office. They do a really good job at trying to monitor, but it has to be asked by the county commission.
Got it. Last question, because we're running out of time, but a good one. If you had a magic wand and there was something you could change in the county, what would it be?
What could I change in the county right now? Honestly, I would like to see be a lot more transparent. I would like to see a lot more transparent. I would like to see that.
What do you mean by that?
Transparency in the way that we do our business. I hate to see these late filed amendments and late filed issues that come to the county commission when people don't have the ability to look them over. I wish, we're starting to see this a little bit more, that we look at the county as a whole. I hate the fact that we just look at our districts and we allow every commissioner to do whatever they want in their district. I think it's important that and I'm starting to see that change now with a lot of new commissioners coming in.
Yeah.
They're starting to pay attention to everyone's district because, this is one community and we have to be able to work here. And the beauty about this community is that we are a diverse community. And I love the fact that we all come from different walks of life. We are different. And the great thing about Miami-Dade County that people don't understand is that we all get along. We all work well together, and
that's beautiful. I wish that story were more
and we have
prevalent.
we have to keep on pushing that. It's our job to keep on pushing it. And, even though the narratives get shaped sometimes in different ways, let's not believe the narratives because, look, I'm one that I believe in everyone's right to live and everyone's life. Everyone should exert their way, live their life however they want to live their life. And when I tell people about individual rights, your right ends when it starts infringing on my right, and that's the delicate balance that we have to strike as policymakers. But we just have to be careful. We just don't swing this pendulum one way or the other. And it's our job as a community to keep that balance because we have an amazing community here. And I love living in Miami-Dade County from Miami Beach to Hialeah to the Redlands, to Opalaka and Miami Gardens. We have a great community. And that's why you don't see the problems that we see in other communities that we see. We don't see those problems here because we've gone through them. We've had those growing pains and we're one people.
No, that's great. Commissioner Garcia, thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciated.
No, thank you,
and
Damian.
thank everyone out there for being with us at the Forward Miami Show.